Assalamu alaikum and good morning. I'm very happy to talk about our study on positive versus negative messages about Pakistan on social media. My main author is Shahryar Naeem, who has done masters from Beacon House National University. So the main issue about this is the memes that we see around. As you can see, recently we have seen a hike in the prices of the fuel in Pakistan. And contrary to what we would expect is like a protest or demands to reduce the fuel prices, what we are seeing around are memes and jokes and humor and sarcasm about what has been done. So this is a really worrying situation, because if this continues, then we will continue to actually make jokes of the things that we see around instead of doing something about it. This has a lot of theoretical importance. As you can see here, there is this experiment done by a Russian psychologist called Pavlov. And what Pavlov here basically explained is about how people are conditioned to act in a certain way. So if you notice on the image, you will see here there is a before conditioning and an after conditioning. The before conditioning, he actually did the experiment on dogs. What he did is that he exposed the dog to a bell, which is a neutral message for him. The dog did not respond. And then he exposed the dog to something which is an environmental message for him, like a food on which he excreted saliva, like he showed need for food. Moving on, during the conditioning, which was done multiple times repetitively, the dog was exposed to both the food on which he excreted saliva and the bell, the sound of the bell. And after some time, the dog was exposed only to the bell again. So what was supposed to be an a neutral response to him actually resulted in excreting saliva. And the reason why I'm sharing this with it is because through conditioning, through messaging, through some sort of way to alter the way people respond, people can be changed into responding into a way which is different from what they actually started with. Another very important implication is from a social identity theory point of view. And I'm talking about the theories here from social psychology, is because a lot of the mass media and communication activities, such as message design, etc., are based and embedded in social psychology. So the social identity theory is a very famous and prevalent theory in which it talks about how people divide themselves into us and us versus them, or me versus you, which is a very natural phenomena, because we all have our identities. We have a personal identity, like my name and who I am, a male, and then my social identity, where I am from, my location, my language, my country, etc., my religion. And then there is social categorization based on my identity, because of which I am divided into a certain distinct group. All of this is fine unless the hate speech comes in. And when the hate speech comes in, that identifies certain groups as in group and out group, favorable and unfavorable, based on their identities. And so this is where the real issue begins. And in politics, it's happening a lot nowadays, as you can see around, that certain people are like constantly labeled or marked as say Bhikhari or Patwari. And you may laugh at it a little bit, but I think this is really, really serious. Just like I mentioned, because this is exactly what happened in the Rohingya refugees in Myanmar. They had a Facebook group called Maba Tha. There was a hate speech going on for a few months, actually 7 to 8 months, that led to a genocide. And those now like 700,000 people of Rohingya are in refugee camps still now today. So I see it as a very serious issue, these memes and these messages which are around us, because we consume them as a very harmless, sugar-coated message, but inside it is a very harmful, poisonous bullet. Social identity theory also talks about that this is happening nowadays, actually amplified more on social media because of our identity being anonymous, which is called a de-individuation effect. Nobody knows who I am. Nobody knows who makes that meme. Nobody knows who forwards it. Nobody really cares who is going to. So this anonymity is really causing very big problem. Other than the social issue that it is creating, there is an internal personality issue also going on, which is our own self-esteem and our self-image. We are losing our own respect in our own eyes, not as an individual, but also as a nation. And this is something that we see that was the main inspiration for our experiment, in which we see all of these memes in which people show and say, oh, Pakistan is a failed country. There is no future for this country. The people are just hopeless. एंड हम तो ऐसे ही हैं और हम कभी नहीं सुधरेंगे वगैरह वगैरह, हमारा कुछ नहीं हो सकता. So इस किस्म का narrative has been spreading a lot on social media, again through memes in a very humorous way. And we wanted to test if this, if people are exposed to this kind of a narrative, how do they feel in terms of their hope, resilience, emotions, and attitude, as opposed to participants who are exposed to more positive messages about the same country, about themselves. And this is why you see that certain countries that we see around are so powerful and they're good because of the reason, the narrative that they receive about themselves. They feel confident in their abilities. They feel happy and confident about their future and of their children. So this was the whole experiment all about. We recruited 100 participants, divided them into two different groups. One is an experimental condition, one is a control condition. Experimental condition received all the positive messages that you see. There were 6 of them. And the negative condition received all of these negative memes. There was no overlap between them. And our main hypothesis is that participants who saw positive messages about Pakistan will have more positive attitude about the message, favorable attitude, will have feel more good emotions and more and less negative emotions about themselves, will also have more hope and resilience, will also have a more positive outlook about the future of the country. So moving on, this survey was done on the Qualtrics, which is a very professional software to conduct surveys for experiments, and that's why I'm showing you here. We begin with an IRB approved consent form and then randomizer in which participants were divided into 2 groups, negative, positive, and then we measured the main variables followed by demographics. So I'm going to be very fast and quick here because I want to quickly go to results. You can talk more about, you can see these results about these details about the variables in our manuscript also that I'm more than happy to share. So attitude was measured on this scale that basically asks the message that you just saw, what do you think about it? Is it useless or useful? Does it make sense or nonsense? Is it good or bad? Is it truthful or misleading? The positive and negative emotions were measured using this scale: happy, relieved, hopeful, empathy, kindness, optimistic, satisfied, and then hesitant, annoyed, overwhelmed, tense, angry, ashamed, and so forth. So in this way, we were measuring whether participants exposed to positive images, did they feel these positivity or not, and so on and so forth for the negative condition. And then we measured hope using the validated scales by Hurt Hope Index, in which on a 5-point scale we measured that please recall the message that you just saw and then rate your feelings on this scale. I have a sense of direction. Life has value and worth. I do not feel alone in life. I have a deeper inner strength, and so on. I have a positive outlook on life. And then we measured the resilience, the ability to survive through difficult times. I usually come through difficult time with little issues and trouble, things like these. Because of the main premise that we have in mind is that participants who are receiving constantly negative memes actually losing resilience to fight and survive. Okay, and the future of Pakistan, we asked a binary question, a 2-item scale. What do you think about Pakistan's future? It's a sort of a yes and no question. Pakistan has a bright future. Pakistan has a dark future. What do you think about the future of the children in Pakistan? They will be better off. They will be worse off. Okay, these are important questions. They have been used in international surveys, and this is where we have adapted the whole scales. Okay, now the participants were 101 divided into 2 different groups, experimental and control, and they were equal division of male and female groups, and they were all over the income distribution. You can find more details about this in our manuscript. I'm more than happy to share, and you will see my email in the end of the presentation. So now going towards the results. What did we find? We find that participants exposed to the positive memes, they actually had more positive attitude about the message. And the participants who exposed to negative memes, even though they were more humor and they were more jolly and enjoyable, they actually had a very unfavorable attitude about the message, which was measured based on the instrument, the scale that you see on your right. Makes sense, useful, positive, to the point, good. See, so again, I'm making all of these arguments here because in the end, I will actually show that why it is important to only and largely expose people to positive messages than the negative ones. Again, the same thing we saw in terms of emotions. Participants exposed to the positive memes had more positive emotions than the negative message condition. Participants exposed to both conditions felt a similar level of negative emotions. So people who were exposed to the positive meme you just saw, they felt this level of negative, positive emotions, but those who were exposed to the humorous meme, they also felt negative about it. That actually means that even though they feel it's good, it's psychologically it's hurting. In terms of hope, we did not see a difference. So in both conditions, participants expressed the same level of hope. The implications of this is that we do not need to show people a lot of humor and jokes and haha messages if we want to inculcate hope in them. The same can be achieved through very simple positive messages. And then finally, resilience, super important. Marginally significant findings. Participants exposed to positive condition felt that they are more resilient. They have more ability to strive through difficulties in future than those who were exposed to negative condition. Belief in positive future of Pakistan was a big finding. Participants exposed to positive memes had a more positive belief that Pakistan has a bright future. And there was a big difference in the way the negative memes receiving participants said that they actually were thinking it has a dark future. And the same goes for the future of children in Pakistan. Those who receive positive messages, they actually felt yes, Pakistani children will be better off. And those who were receiving the jokes, no, Pakistani children will actually be worse off. This is a very big red sign, a warning sign. If we are losing hope in the future of Pakistan in terms of children, then what will we do about it today to improve it? Finally, the discussion. I will quickly jump to also some concrete tools that we can use. So we see these as jokes. When I see these WhatsApp messages around on my WhatsApp and I sometimes message them, please do not share it. They say, take it easy, it's just a joke and no problem, or things like this. But if you see here, there are 7 different types of information disorders. And the first one is satire or parody, in which the misinformation is spread as a joke. And then there are many others. There are misleading content, imposter content, fabricated content, manipulated content, false content, and false connection. And we see all these 7 types in the WhatsApp messages that you have right in your phones right now. And we are receiving it and forwarding it unknowingly, that the damage it is causing to people's attitude, people's emotions, psychology, people's resilience and hope, and the future of their children, actually. Okay, so what can we do about it? Fortunately, there has a lot already been done in many countries. This is not just our problem. In many other countries, people have faced similar issues, and the experts have made tools to bridge these divides and gap to improve the exchange of views. So there are tools like this. It's called Arbiter. I'm not going to show the video here, but you can search for it or take a screenshot and then go and find the plugin and download it and see how it helps improve divide in the US, where it is from, between Republicans and Democrats. And then there is another one which is called Is Your News Feed a Bubble? This is why the reason why we have so many conflicts and we are not able to talk about people who do not agree with us on politics or any other thing is because they're living in a bubble. They're living in an information bubble. All the information that is given to them is a very specific information, and you are not receiving it, and so you are all living in your bubbles. And because of these echo chambers, we are not communicating with each other, and this is why we say, इसको मेरी बात समझ क्यों नहीं आ रही? Because he has his own bubble in which he is living in. This site actually shows you those bubbles, and this is why you both can have more empathy. Finally, flip feed is a very interesting one. For example, if I want to see that what kind of messages are appearing on your feed on Twitter, I can use this app which is called Flip Feed, and I will start receiving all the messages that you are receiving. That helps me understand कि आपको कौन सा message receive हो रहा है, so that आप ऐसा सोच रहे हैं. In this way, you will also be able to understand what I am receiving, and then we both can have a more friendly discussion, a more harmonious conversation. And then there is this called blue feed, red feed, again, Democrats, Republicans. But so, for example, you can also say ARY feed and Geo feed, or you can say Dawn News feed or some other newspaper, so that we see how there are the difference in narrative between different newspapers and news sites. And then we are able to figure out how these two news sources are actually covering the same topic in a different way. And that also helps us be more aware about what we can do to bridge these gaps. And finally, Adding more to it is another website called All Sites, which will show you from the right, from the left, and from the center. So the moderates, there's always a big majority of silent majority, which don't participate into any conversation, but they have a view about it. So what does the moderates think about it? What does the right and left think about it? And all of this is, if presented in one way, in like a one screenshot, actually helps us understand that why there are so many conflicts and what we can do to bridge this gap. Sometimes we actually find there are not many differences and we can actually achieve them. So I will end here. These are more fact-checking sites that you can see. This is a really, really important issue. And I would just end here with a request that we may not be able to find those people who are making these memes. They may not be able to ever understand that how it is hurting our country and our self-image. But the least that we can do is whenever we receive these memes, we don't share. We stop the chain. We block the chain. We actually tell people, even though they make a mockery of us, that please don't share it because this is hurting us in a very, very long-term sustainable way. And please don't share it forward so that we can stop the poisonous messages going on. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Sorry I could not join because I was away. This is my email. I'm more than happy to share more details with you. Thank you and Allah Hafiz.